A ball is shot out of a cannon at ground level. We know that the height h in feet after t seconds is given by this function, this equation. So what does this mean? This means that here's a cannon and they shot this cannonball and it's going through the air. Under the influence of gravity, it's going to follow a parabolic path. So it's going to go up to a peak and then come down to zero. So it starts at zero, ends at zero, it reaches a peak at this point. This equation describes this curve. So this curve is described by this equation. And t represents seconds and h represents height. So if you give this equation seconds, replace the t with seconds, it will give you the height at that time. So it will give you the height if you give it the time. Notice that since this is symmetrical, it's a parabola, it's symmetrical, that means you could cut it in half right here and this side would be the same. On its way up, 2 seconds, it reaches this height. So on its way down, it's going to acquire that height again. So that height here that's being measured in the h-axis, which would be the y-axis, right? They have the same number, the same height, because it passes through that height on its way up and on its way down. Same here. 3 seconds, it reaches this height. In 7 seconds, it reaches that height, but on its way down. Right here, the height is 0, and right here, the height is 0. Since right here it's at ground level, and right here it's at ground level. Now, if you were to replace these numbers here, which are seconds, it's going to give you the height it has achieved. So at 2 seconds, this is the height. At 8 seconds, this is the height. At 3 seconds, this is the height. At 7 seconds, there is a height. Notice that these two heights are the same and these two heights are the same because it achieves that height on its way up, and on its way down, it goes through that same height again. Why are some of the outputs equal? Because on its way up, it achieves that height. On its way down, it passes through that height again. At what time does the ball get to the highest point? Well, that would be smack in the middle. Its highest point would be here. So notice, this is 0 seconds, this is 10 seconds, so halfway would be at the 5-second mark, it achieves the highest height, its peak height. And that's why we have a 5 here. At 5 seconds, it reaches the highest point. And it tells us the highest point will be 400 feet after you plug it in and simplify. The ball hits the ground in 10 seconds. Notice the height of the ball is 0 feet again. So on its way up, before it was shot, it was in ground levels, 0 feet. And then when it finishes its trajectory, 10 seconds have gone by. D, what is the domain of H? Domain means the horizontal value. So in this case, the horizontal values are the time, the t. So which horizontal values were used? That's the domain question. Those are the inputs to the formula that gave us. So that's the horizontal value from 0 to 10. It started at ground level, ends up in ground level, and that picture, that graph, was traced out from 0 seconds to 10 seconds. So that would be the domain. This describes the inputs, the horizontal values that graph uses. What is the range? Well, the range of H would be the y part, the vertical part. So it's the smallest height was 0 and the greatest height was 400. So it covered all the values between 0 and 400. This would be the range of the height. This is the domain.